Well, welcome to another episode of Low Gear. Behind me is a white bush tram, and it was built by Ian Jenner, and about 5 years ago Ian showed us how it was all done, what bush trams were all about, and how this particular bush tram went up and down the rails, how he turned it around and all that sort of thing. 5 years on, he's built another one, and it was one that was used for the same purpose as the white, and this one's got a comma cab on it, an old comma truck cab. And other trucks were used. They had Fords, they had an FF Austin from the Mamakoo bush that pulled logs out of the bush, and it's basically the logging truck of the time. And these little bush trams that Ian's rebuilt were just really the bush bogies, I suppose, that took them in to work. So let's join Ian and have a look at his new comma bush tram. Well, Ian, it's lovely to see you again, and welcome back to our little show.
Thank you, Bill.
And the last time we saw you, you had just finished a white bush tram.
Yep.
And the title bush tram is basically what this truck is as well, and so you've made another one.
Yep.
And looking back at some of the photographs you showed us, there was this, which looked like a very popular truck that took people to the bush, but looking very dead. And so you've rescued it?
Yep. Yeah, the two of them came from the Mamakoo tram that the NZR had just out of Rotorua, and I did the first one up, and once I'd finished that and got it running, then it was time to start on the second one. So
no rest for the wicked?
No, I've tried being good, but that doesn't seem to help, so I just keep going.
Good on you.
So this one is also a white truck chassis.
Oh, okay.
And it was converted started in 1948 and finished in 1949.
So did they put this comma cab on it?
Yep.
So it was just, that's what they did?
Yep. They had the comma cab on it, and they used Chevrolet running gear, engine, gearbox, back axle, and converted it, and away they went.
So what drives the actual wheels? Has it got a drive shaft going to a diff, and that drives those two back wheels behind us?
Yep, it's just set up exactly as if it was a truck.
Oh, okay.
They used a Chevrolet back axle, or 1.5 ton Chevrolet truck back axle, and cut it down and made it narrower to fit within 3'6". And so it's just got a drive shaft, and I've put a 202 Holden engine in this because I picked one up reasonable price on Trade Me, and a Holden 4-speed gearbox. Wow. I think it goes pretty well.
Oh, it certainly does, yes. Yeah.
It's near enough to Chevrolet for my liking.
The GM, the same company?
Yep, same but different, yep.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
Now, when I'm looking in this cab, the first thing I noticed, there's no steering wheel. And in the white, you did have a steering wheel, but that was just to hang on to. You didn't actually steer anything, which seemed odd to me. You know, you've got a steering wheel, you've actually got to steer.
Yeah. Well, yeah. In the first one, the steering wheel's connected up to the brakes on the front wheel. So when you want to stop, you wind the steering wheel to the right, and when you want to go, you wind the brakes off, wind it round to the left.
And until you get to your destination, it's just something to lean on.
Something there to hold on to it.
Yeah.
Sort of seems a bit more comfortable holding on to something.
Yeah. But again, something in here, so it doesn't compute when you're looking here.
Yeah.
And there's no steering wheel at all.
No, for some reason they just put a lever down through the floor with a linkage to the brakes on the front wheel, and so you can drive with your arms folded, which doesn't seem quite right somehow.
No. But I think that's coming. I mean, they can do that now with electric cars. Apparently, you don't have to steer it. It gets on with itself, knows where it is, knows where the car in front of it is, and you just sit there and read the paper. But there's something in here that says, "Hang on a minute, who's got control of this here?"
Yeah. Somehow it doesn't quite seem right, but there's the coming thing. So
sure.
We'll see what happens.
So there's a few levers in here. There's one on the far side, and then there's the gear lever, and then I guess that's a brake, and then looks like a clutch and a brake, and an accelerator. Maybe just talk us through those.
Well, the one on the far side, because you've got steel wheels running on steel track, it can get quite slippery at times. So the lever on the far side, you pull it, and it drops sand down onto the rails just in front of the driving wheels.
Oh, okay.
So if it gets a bit slippery, you pull the lever, drop a bit of sand, and away you go, rock it along.
And the next one?
And the other one is just your gear lever, and then the brake lever.
So how many gears do you have?
I've put a Holden 4-speed gear, so
you
4
can-
in reverse, but here our maximum speed's supposed to be 20 kilometres an hour.
So you don't get the top
So
much.
no, I haven't tried top yet. The third gear is quite enough,
Yeah,
really.
fair enough.
Yeah.
And then there's the brake, and then there's got the clutch and the brake. Is that just something to put your feet on, or?
No, it works just like a car. It's just like you were driving a car. It's just
okay.
a foot brake. Works the hydraulic brakes in the Chevrolet back axle,
Yeah.
and the clutch is
Let the clutch out, away you go.
where you go.
An accelerator on the side.
Accelerator for the go.
So, okay.
Yeah, so it's just
Just like driving an ordinary truck, except you haven't got a steering wheel.
Yeah, exactly. You drive along with your arms folded.
And I also see that this particular truck's got, for a bit of air conditioning, you can get that windscreen open and a bit of airflow.
Yeah, well, that was the old English way of having flow-through ventilation. You whip the windscreen out and let a bit of air through. So.
Sure.
And it's got little ventilators in the side panels as well. So
Wow.
they thought of everything, even wind up and down windows.
So here at the Pukimaru Junction, is that what it's called?
Pukimiro, yep.
Pukimaru.
Yep.
And it's sort of about 10, maybe 15 minutes from Huntley, heading west.
Yep.
And you're open once a month, something like that?
We're open on the first Sunday of a month, and we take people for rides. We have 2 carriages over behind us here, a steam locomotive and 2 diesel locos. So, and on a good day, like last Sunday, we had nearly 400 adult passengers. So we had a good old time, really. Yeah, it went well.
Wow.
So we have a lot of fun, but hard work with that many people. But
Yeah. And
once,
so you feed them, give them all a cup of tea?
yeah, a cup of tea, sausage, and a piece of bread,
Yeah.
all the good stuff.
So click that ticket as many times as you can while they're here.
Exactly. Yep, and hopefully send everybody home well fed and happy.
Yeah. So
It's a
how
lot of
many
fun.
of these would be working in its day?
Well, just about every sawmill, and there were hundreds of sawmills around the country, had their own little tramway for bringing the logs down to the bush.
Oh, okay.
And
so
they
you
had trucks like this of different sorts to take the men out to work in the forest, or sometimes they would have a little village up in the bush and would bring the people down to civilization. And
Yeah.
it's, they were.
Because there are a few photographs of a variety of trucks with trucks of logs, showing maybe 6, 7
Yeah,
log wagons behind them.
yeah. Well, particularly at Mamaku, they made petrol engine diesel engine machines for carrying the logs, because the Forest Service decided they didn't like steam fire in the bush.
Oh, okay.
So they persuaded everybody to go to internal combustion.
Now there's a difference between tramways and railways, and one's
Yep.
less pedantic or than
Yeah,
the other.
Yeah, there was the railways was the main New Zealand railways, but there was an act called the Tramways Act, and that licensed people to build railways, and they were to a much lesser standard than the main railway was.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, so they were generally just for private use of that sawmill, and generally of relatively short length.
So they would have had, like, I just remember the little flat-nosed jinker, or little motorised jinker with 6 guys either side sitting sideways, and off you go like a little outboard motor on the back. But no, there's just a little engine driving this thing to take people to wherever they have to go, mainly the maintenance people for the rails.
Yeah, well, they had all sorts of different machines according to the, I guess, what was available in the imagination of the guy that was building it, really.
Right.
And they just did what they needed to do to keep them going.
Now this isn't new, having a vehicle on rails. And in America, way back in sort of like the 20s, I see photographs of all sorts of different vehicles, trucks and cars on bogies going along rails. So it's nothing new.
No, it's not new. No, they steam was always an expensive piece of machinery to operate, and so they tried all sorts of petrol engine vehicles to be a lot simpler and easier to operate.
But I guess if you've got one of those and you want to take your kids to town on something like this, you've got to make sure the track's clear And the last time we were here, they actually gave you a sort of like a hoop thing,
Yeah.
a cane hoop.
Yeah.
And you had to take that with you, and then you give it back when you came back, which meant if the cane hoop isn't on where it's supposed to be, somebody's on the rails.
Exactly, yeah. Yeah, that was the New Zealand Railway had a tablet system, and the next station was connected to this station, and only one tablet could be out, so there could only be one train on that section of the line. And we use it here just to make sure that exactly the same
there's
thing.
5 here, these 2 trucks and 3 engines, there's the possibility of somebody coming the other way. But
yeah,
I
but
guess being
we
this so
protect
small,
it.
you probably know who was where.
Yeah, but unfortunately we're not allowed to take this one on the New Zealand railways. Would be a lot of fun if we could one day, but
Well, they take restored steam engines on the main trunk line from time to time.
I think a modern engineer would shake his head and say no if he saw this one, no.
So yeah, you get back to, if it works, it's okay for the tram people.
Yeah, it's fine for what we do with it here,
Sure.
but not mainline use, I don't think.
We were down at Taramanui, and a railway man who's since passed away took us way up into the back blocks of tramways, and they had tunnels, they had all sorts of bridges to the trams to go to get the loads and then come back out again. But tramways seem to be, like you were saying, they're just all over the place, and these days pretty much disused.
Yeah, well they all closed in the 70s, I suppose. They tailed off after the Second World War when more trucks became available and stronger, and so the need to put in the sort of high cost of a railway just evaporated at that time.
So roll on the GMCs.
Yep, the GMCs made a huge difference. But some of the tramways, like the one at Ongarui, just north of Tamarunui, was a huge undertaking. They would have spent, in today's terms, millions of dollars on building the railway.
Yeah. We've been to Waimiha, and it looks like everybody and his dog just walked away from their place. And if you get a chance, folks, that's a good place to go and visit. But just prior to that, at that little township, there is a whole spiel about the tramways and how they went about it and what they did and what it cost.
Yeah, well, the Ongarui is now the timber trail, and so basically if you go cycling on the timber trail, you're going on an old tramway, and that was put in by the company to bring the logs down to the mill.
Oh, okay. So what's next in line for you? You've done this one, is there another one, or are you just going to enjoy them? Or I know you've got an old Morris.
Yeah, I've got the old Morris commercial. I need to do that again one day. But
okay.
I've got a small 4-wheel, just a little people carrier jigger that came from Bennett and Punch sawmill, which was just to the south of Vauakuni.
Oh, okay.
So that's the next project. So no, I'm not going to quite retire yet.
No.
Still got a bit more work
Absolutely
to do.
You do. Oh well, I think we should jump on this and go for a bit of a blat down the track there. And,
okay.
So you jump in, I'll just watch you get in.
Okay.
Here we go. This will be fun. So you're there now. And
I'm here.
It's obviously there's no steering wheel in front of you.
No,
and your whole mind must be just going.
Yeah, you just sort of drive with your arms folded. It doesn't seem right.
No. But beautiful comma. Beautiful cab.
No, I was lucky I picked this up on Trade Me, and the other one was just totally scrap metal, so I picked this one up, and here we are.
Oh well, give her a kick in the guts and... That sounds delicious.
Good old 202 hole.
So you've got the old little vent stick out the side here?
Got a bit of fresh air.
Low Gear's sponsor is ProTrans Earth Moving. They are a Christchurch-based company and specialise in earth moving and demolition. They also specialise in remote control diggers for those jobs that have an element of danger. And they have a variety of special purpose trucks that can get into those hard to get to places. So if you have an earth moving or demolition job, check out ProTrans at www.protrans.com. On the 4th of November, we'll be leaving from Auckland to begin our 2017 Low Gear bus tour. Come with Linda and me as we travel the North and South Islands of this beautiful country, looking at some of the vehicles and machines you've seen throughout our Talking Trucks and Low Gear TV shows. This is a 2-week vintage and classic adventure, and we conclude this tour on the 18th of November in Dunedin. So if you or someone you know would like the ultimate trip down memory lane, give me a call on 09 536 5327 or email me at billhohepper@extra.co.nz, and for registration and more information just go to our webpage at www.lowgear.co.nz. So we look forward to hearing from you very soon.
How's it going? It's Robbie here, representing the Ashburton Truck Show. It's held on the 2nd of September, which is a few weekends away at the Ashburton Showgrounds. There's going to be trucks, trailers, everything that's road and transport related. There's going to be activities and entertainment for the kids. There's going to be food. There's going to be trucks, trailers, everything for the big kids, or big kids at heart. So come on down. She starts at 9 o'clock in the morning. Great days or weekends entertainment because it's Father's Day that weekend as well. So come on down, you'll see my truck Liam here and my fire truck down there. There's also an auction and celebrity guests on the Saturday night as well as dinner. Got to feed these truckies out there, eh? They don't get by on nothing. With all proceeds going from the day and from the night to the Leukemia Blood Foundation Research Lab, which helps with, cures for blood diseases and that sort of thing. So come on down, she's a great day out. Come up and have a yarn with me because everyone knows me. Cheers, Robbie over and out. Whee!
Welcome back. Just before we head off down the rails in the comma, let's have a look at how Ian actually turns these machines around on the rails. It's no mean task. On the front of the white, there's an inbuilt timber jack that he uses to turn it around. So let's have a look at how it's done.
Disconnect the brakes on the front wheel. The steering wheel works the brakes on the front wheel with wooden brake blocks. So you disconnect the linkage, lift the front up and roll the bogie back to a pivot point in the middle and let the jack down, and then you can spin it around.
So is the truck balanced at that point?
The truck is pretty well balanced, just a little bit
So
of
you can just sort of do that and it goes up and down and whatever you want to do with it.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's pretty ingenious really. A bit like hard work, but it's a bit of fun as well.
So out come the pins that hold the brakes in place, and it's pretty simple really. You haven't got all sorts of complicated machinery like you have on a real truck. This is just connected to a bogie with a simple little pin. Now these old cranks here, we've seen a few of these in our travels, and they're really associated with the great big steam stuff and railways and logging trucks. And you might remember Brian Belcher talking about one of these jacking a load of logs around Piha corners, where the drivers had to jack the jinkers over to get the logs around the corners. The corners were so tight. I'm sure Ian's got a couple of little niggly-nagglies there when he's got this up on those blocks like that something might shift and the whole lot will fall down and he has to start again. But the timber jack's actually attached to the front of the truck there. The back wheels are square, so the chances of it falling off are pretty remote, I'd say. Now it's bogie shifting time, and there's a little pin in that blue block halfway down the truck, and it fits into a little slot in the bogie, and that's the perfect balance point. This whole idea was thought of by Mr. Ollie Smith, as Ian was saying earlier, and to think this up in the first place would have taken a bit of thought. How to turn the thing around. This is before you had little turntables in the bush to actually turn the truck around on a rail turntable. So this is the next best thing. It's quite ingenious, really. Kiwi ingenuity, live and well.
Let the trucks come out.
And now comes the tricky bit. If there's a tricky bit, I guess this is it. And already the bogie rolled back a wee bit, but all's well that ends well. But here's the back of this thing, and that's where all the men would have been on their way to work up in the bush. All their gears, their saws, and whatever else you use in a bush gear, wedges. But all Ian has to do really is just put those two big back wheels back on the rails, and then we're all ready for the for the next bit. Wind the front down and put the bogie back. It's just a one-man job. I mean, Ian's not the fittest person in the world, but he's managing this okay. So back go the blocks, and we're ready for part 3. Now it's time for Ian to be just that little bit nervous again, jacking this whole thing up. But that timber jack, we actually take one of these with our 4-wheel drive tracks, and it's for jacking the back of the truck away from obstacles or the front, or even just picking up the back or the front of the truck just to change a wheel. Very handy device, but they're hard to find. And now for some old aeroplane speak, chocks away. Now we're all lined up, and it's just a simple matter now of winding the thing back down and relocate the pin.
That it? Yep.
And we just move the bogey just a bit. In she goes, and that's that.
And that's it.
That's amazing. That certainly keeps you fit, Ian.
Yeah, it does.
Brakes back on.
Connect the brakes back up. And that's it. You're ready to go home.
Ready for a cup of tea and a little lie down, I reckon.
So where does the word tram rather than train come from?
I think they were licensed under the Tramways Act rather than the Railways.
Oh, okay.
So that meant that the bush people, the sawmillers, could run at a different standard of equipment and less regulation than if they were covered by the Railways Act.
So the tram is just a way to get around bureaucracy at the time?
I think it was a way that the bureaucracy sort of let people have a bit of freedom.
Get our men up into the bush without having to sort of go through a whole bunch of rigmarole that wasn't really necessary. I mean, it's just a truck, it's not a great big huge locomotive.
Yeah. Well, some of the tramways had locomotives. Some of them were quite substantial railways in their own right, to very high engineering standards.
Is Cowrail part of that? Cowrail sort of go up into the bush and they get out to the Cowrail timber building?
No, that's part of the NZR line.
Oh, okay.
But the Carter Holt mill at Wakatani, they used to have a tramway that ran up from Edgecombe up near Murupara. That was a good long tram as well.
It was always, since I've been doing this, you see tramways and tram lines, and I thought, well, there's no trams run on them. What's the story, you know?
No, they're sort of known as bush tramways rather than bush railways.
And so you had sort of shunters and that sort of a truck train locomotives that actually pull the logs out. So the same track that this went on pulled logs as well.
Yeah, they were pretty well used for hauling the logs down, and as a subsidiary for getting the men in and out.
Ian, thank you very, very, very much. And it's guys like you that keep New Zealand history alive, and that's important. And as you said, 400 people came to have a look at New Zealand history, and it's a credit to you and your team that do that. And if you want to come and have a look at this place, it's about 10 minutes from, you go across the bridge at Huntley, follow your nose, and there's a sign down there, I think, that says...
The Glen Afton Line Bush Tramway Club. So come and see us the first Sunday of a month. And thanks very much, Bill. Appreciate all the work that you do to keep the history going as well.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bill.
Oh well, folks, we'll see you after the break. In this little section, I'm looking at a very unusual machine. It's a steam locomotive, and according to the blurb over there, it's the first one in New Zealand. It came to Invercargill, and the idea behind it was that they had a railway going to the Bluff, which was an important port at the time, but they also were talking about taking one north of Invercargill up through Winton and up further north, and this is what they came up with. And now this is special because it's running on wood, and these wheels here are angled to sort of go into the groove of the wood there, and the big wheels, and these big wheels sit on top of the looks like an 8x8 block of wood, and drive it, and these wheels lock it on to the wood. So a wooden tracked railway, and this came from Ballarat in Australia about 1863, which is a long time ago. And as you can see, it was a steam train. But again, there's the other wheel that sits on the track, and the one on the inside under here is on an angle like that on purpose. So you can see the wood, and the angle of that wheel holds them in place, and it's the same on the other side here. So that's something very unusual. I haven't seen anything like that before. But one of the downsides of this thing was that the cinders and the sparks set fire to the rails sometimes, and so that wasn't any good. There were lots of political arguments at the time whether this is a good thing or whether it's a bad thing, but it did exist, and it did do some work, and it ran on these sort of look like 10 by 10 squares of timber, those to hold it on, and just the driving wheels of a normal steam train. There they are. The brake, had to lean on that pretty fiercely because it's just a big block of wood there to slow it down. And in order for a bit of comfort for the operators, they've got some upside down springs here doing their thing. We would have towed a coal train, and it says on there, it says Hunt and Opie, Victoria Ironworks, Ballarat, Australia, and that's where it came from. So the wooden railways, who would have believed it?